In this lecture, you'll learn how to view information on and configure your disks, RAID groups, and aggregates using the command line. I've logged in at the command line here, and first off, let's have a look at information about our disks. So to get that information, the command is storage disk and then show. And that will show me all of the disks in my cluster. I can see the name of the disk, the size, the type, etc., and which node is currently the owner. So up at the top here, I can see all of my disks owned by node 1. And if I scroll down, I can see I've got disks there owned by node 2 as well. And I can see if the disks are currently assigned to an aggregate or if they're spare. And if they are assigned to an aggregate, I can see the aggregate that they are making up part of. Okay, so that gives me a lot of output. I can get more granular there. I can limit the information I want to see. So I'm going to hit the up arrow to get storage disk show, and I'll do a question mark. And you can see I can filter it by all of these different information types. So let's hit Q to quit out of there. And I'm going to say dash aggregate to view the disks making up a particular aggregate. Then I'll go space and a question mark. And I can see the aggregates that I've got available on my system now. Let's see some information about aggregate underscore C1N1. And I'll hit enter. And now I just see the disks that are making up that aggregate. Okay, so that is how I can get the information about my disks. Let's have a look at working with aggregates now. So that was storage disk show to get information about the disks. Not surprisingly, to find information about the aggregates, it's going to be storage aggregate show. And there I can see my 3 aggregates, the size that they are, and how much space they've got left available, which node they're on, and the RAID type that is in use. Okay, let's actually create an aggregate at the command line. So to do that, the command is storage aggregate create, and I'll enter a question mark to see the parameters and values that I have to enter here. So I only have to specify the name of the aggregate and the disk count, how many disks are going to make it up. But real world, you're going to want to give more information than that. For sure, you're going to want to specify the node that this aggregate is going to be on, and also at least the type of disks that you are going to use as well. So you can do that. You can get more specific if you want to and actually name individual disks if you want to. But typically, it's going to be more convenient just to specify the type of disks that we want, maybe the capacity of those disks, that kind of information. So let's actually create an aggregate. And I can see that I've got an aggregate for C1N1. I actually probably made a typo when I was doing that. I probably meant to call it aggregate 1, C1N1. So let's create an aggregate now of aggregate 1 underscore C1N2 on the second node. And then I have to specify how many disks are going to make up this aggregate. In this lab environment, let's just make it a small aggregate with 5 disks. Then let's see what my options are for the disk type. And I can see all the different types there. Let's say that I'm going to use fcal here. And then which node is this going to be on? Well, this is going to be on cluster 1-02. Hit enter. It's going to give me information about which drives are going to be used to make up the aggregate, which drives are going to be data drives, and which are going to be my parity drives. And it also shows me the amount of usable capacity that I'm going to have there. Let's say that I'm all good with that. So I will say yes, and it will create the aggregate for me. Okay, when that is done, let's do a storage aggregate show again, because as you saw earlier, I made a typo when I created the aggregate on C1N1. I wanted to call that aggregate1 underscore C1N1. So let's see how to fix that at the command line. So I will go storage aggregate and a question mark to find the command that would rename an aggregate. And I can see it there. We've got the command of rename. So let's say rename and then put in a question mark to check the syntax. And I see it is dash aggregate and the old aggregate name. I'll hit a question mark to check that. It's aggregate underscore C1N1. And then I'll go dash new name and I'm going to rename this to aggregate1 underscore C1N1 and hit enter. And then that is going to rename the aggregate for me. Last thing to show you is let's have a look at information about a specific aggregate at the command line. So for that, it is storage aggregate show and then a question mark, and I can see all the different information that I can filter this by. Let's quit out of here and say that I want to see information about aggregate and check my names again. Let's go for aggregate1 underscore C1N2. And there I can see really verbose information about this aggregate now. So I can see the disks that are making it up. I can see all the other values that are associated with that aggregate as well. Okay, so that was everything I wanted to show you here about how to get information on your disks and also how to get information on your aggregates and configure them. Obviously, your RAID groups, again, are an attribute of your aggregates. So for configuring your RAID groups, you would do that by configuring your aggregates and then setting the RAID group values on that aggregate. Thanks for watching. If you want to get hands-on practice with NetApp storage for free on your laptop, then you can download my free ebook, which you can see above my head right now. Also, check out my NetApp Storage Complete course, which will teach you everything you could possibly want to know about ONTAP. Thanks.